very good evening, Zimbabwe. We call this effort My Future. Tonight we're focusing on the very topical issue of public accounts. Our guest in the studio tonight is the Honourable Member of Parliament from Mfakosi constituency, who is the chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Public Accounts, Honourable Paurina Mpariwa. Ma'am, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, Farai. Good evening, viewers.
Fantastic. And as always, young Zimbabweans with hot, burning questions that they want to put to, issues they want to discuss as we shape the future of this country. The panel tonight includes Moline Wande, Kudzanai Mususa, and Martina Murutswa. They're all from Harare, but we've got young Zimbabweans from all over the country here to talk to you, Honourable. I suppose to begin with, a very quick overview of what your committee actually does.
Thank you very much. I think you very well know that as parliamentarians, we are mandated to carry oversight over what government does and what businesses are being carried out by the entities like the parastatals. So my committee actually carries out responsibilities in terms of wanting to find out on whether those allocated resources have been put to good use. In a nutshell, that is the responsibility and mandate of my portfolio.
A very demanding mandate, and I'm sure we'll be able to break it down even further as we get into this discussion. Let me begin with a question that is coming from Moline Wande. I know you've got a question for the Honourable. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Honourable. My question is, what can your portfolio committee do to make sure all young people are able to go to university? Are there enough scholarships, opportunity for young people that if they cannot afford to go to the university?
Thank you very much for that question, but I want to believe that education is key in terms of one to actually enter into any space in terms of occupation that is going to work. But my portfolio demands that you have to have a specific qualification in terms of occupying that particular space, because you need a bit of accounting, you need to be able to count. So we demand that as young people or students, you also do some kind of mathematics and a bit of accounts so that you'll be able to carry out the duties effectively and efficiently.
Honourable Mpariwa, we know that the Auditor General has been auditing parastatals, government ministries and other things like that. And a lot of the time, often years, I know they are years behind schedule, but they've actually caught up. Into the credit of the Auditor General, we know that they're doing quite a lot in terms of that. When those findings do come out, what do we do? Because often we are hearing cases of rot, we're hearing cases of abuse. What is being done to curb that?
Thank you, Farai. That is a very important question that the nation should know on what has been happening. As a portfolio committee, like I said, because we do carry oversight in terms of the functions, in terms of the use of the public resources. This is why it is called public accounts. We are looking at whether the monies that have been allocated from Treasury has been put to good use. Two, and accountability. Is someone not taken what does not belong to them? That is also the responsibility of this committee. To an extent that even in the committee, we have the Auditor General, because when the Auditor General has submitted a report to Parliament, we then go on the recommendations that the Auditor General has actually said on a particular ministry, be it even a parastatal, to say, when I audited the accounts, I observed the following, that they did not do ABCD. And as we make a report, we take to Parliament, we debate, we also lobby other parliamentarians who are not members of the portfolio committee to actually speak to the report so that we make as much noise as possible. And after that, we make recommendations to the executive, that is the government, to say ABCD, and we also give timelines to say by such and such a date, so that when the Auditor General goes back to do the audits in the next phase, they also look at whether those recommendations have been implemented by the particular ministry or the parastatal.
How effective have you been?
We have been very effective, to be honest, Farai, because we have seen the implementation of the governance framework in terms of parastatals, in terms of how people do the business. You have seen even most of the people jumping. The reports were really behind in terms of actually ministries or parastatals submitting to the Auditor General, because we can only carry oversight when the ministries have submitted what they have been doing in the ministries through the reports. They have been jumping because we have been demanding, we have been calling them, and we have been interrogating them. We are a new committee that has done 4 reports at the moment. And we are holding on to the GMB report. That will be the 5th report in this particular session.
Very hard working, and I'm sure we'll be able to get into some of the details of some of those reports that you've already presented later in this program. But let me hand over now to Martina Mulutswa. She's from Venona School. Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa. What I would like to know is your portfolio committee making sure that all funds are correctly distributed for the development of the youth? And if so, how you carry out this task, making sure that there is enough transparency for all of us?
Thank you. I want to thank Martina because that is really targeted at the portfolio on public accounts. We do really look closely on whether all the resources that have been allocated to the ministries, especially the Committee on the Youth and the Women, because that is part of the coverage in terms of social sectors, even Ministry of Labour, because when you cannot talk about public service without involving the youth, because they also are looking at the greater, future where they will be employed. And I want to believe that when the allocation is done, the ministry have got to spare something for the youth, especially the ministries that are targeted to work in terms of improving the development of the youth. Yes.
I like that point. And I suppose just to follow up as well on Martina's question, it may not directly fall on you because you may not influence over procurements, but we know for a fact that there's been a push that parastatals, governments as the biggest buyer should buy local, to promote local industries, to promote young people who've been awarded quotas and should be given business. In your observations, when you've done these audits, are local businesses being given preference? Is there enough being done to support young people?
At the moment, I will say yes and no. Because to an extent, when one has not been doing it, and they are now attempting to do it, we'll see there is a positive development in terms of the attitudes towards targeting to prefer and actually capacitate youth development and programs.
All right. We thank you so much for those contributions, Honorable Mpariwa. We still have a lot more to go. So we've got young people here who want to ask questions, who want to interact with you. We get into some of their questions when we return from this short break, so do stay with us. We thank you for staying with us. My Future continues. Our guest tonight, Honorable Paurina Mpariwa. She is the chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Public Accounts. We are continuing here, bringing in members of Parliament who are elected by us as Zimbabweans, holding them to account, asking them key questions about what they're doing and discussing in the August House as we all aim towards developing a brighter future for this country. We've got young people here dying to have their say, literally. We'll start with the gentleman in the corner. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Mpariwa. I'm Ashang Makiwa. I have a question which is in relation with in road development. We have a toll gate and we all pay for it, but why is it there is a low rate in road development?
Thank you. Just to add on to that, it's not just roads that are supposed to be built that are not there, bridges, things, all these projects that are meant to happen that perhaps are not happening or the pace is slow. As a committee, what are your findings? Why is this happening, as the young man is saying?
Thank you very much, Farai. I would want to thank him for the question. It is important that the nation keeps checking, in terms of what has been said to be done for the public, and especially the young ones are the road users of tomorrow. They will be drivers and so on, and they have to be worried. But I think when a project has been pronounced that it will take place at a certain time, if resources have been allocated to that particular project, and the AG picks it up and necessary that it comes to the committee to say, I noted that on this particular project, the resources were abused, definitely we will be up on our feet to find out where the resources have gone to. But at the moment, we have had Zinara coming to the portfolio committee to just give an overview of what they've done in the past, and we have said we'll wait until we get the topics that he mentioned. We'll wait until we get the report on what has happened within that particular area in terms of the toll gates, because it is a new thing at the moment. Once the AG brings a report saying there were resources allocated for toll gate A or B and I did not observe proper accountability, we'll be up on our feet as a committee to actually interrogate those who will have been allocated resources and they've not been utilized in the correct way.
Mpariwa, perhaps you could also just speak to here very quickly the composition of this committee, because you mentioned earlier that there are police officers who are part of this. Do you have auditors, accountants, those sort of things? Because some of the issues that you're addressing with here may be sophisticated white-collar exploits.
Yes, we do have experts in the committee, like the AG and the team. The whole AG's department is part of the committee, because that is our life, our life bells in terms of having them in the committee, because they pick the information professionally, they compile the reports, they put it in the language that everyone else understands, they make recommendations. So you can see that it's a mixed bag of people with different qualifications and backgrounds, so that as chair, you rely on proper information with the people that are qualified to do the job.
Let's continue our discussion with young people. I know there is another question in the panel. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Honourable. I am John Tehete, and my question to you is, would it not help to publicly distribute the findings from your accounts so as to aid in the reduction of corruption, so as to better the citizens of the nation?
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. And I think corruption has become a cancer in this country, and a lot of people have denounced certain individuals, denounced certain parastatals and institutions due to what they've seen as the public. And let me hasten to say that as a committee, we have actually made recommendations, and those recommendations, the ministers have come actually to respond and to actually say, we will agree. And in the coming audit time, when the AG goes back to do the second roundup to see whether the recommendations have been implemented, then we will see as a committee on whether they have actually implemented. We are saying, please remove all those people that you know have committed crimes in terms of being corrupt people.
Apart from removal of corrupt officials, which I think we'll talk about in further detail, what are some of the other recommendations? Because I'm sure the problems that are dogging these parastatals are not just corruption issues. What about competency, qualifications, efficiencies? Also, what are some of the other?
That's exactly fine. Because when we say you cannot just wake up one day and say remove so and so, we are saying those who do not qualify and they are occupying the space. You also looking at the term of office for a particular person, like chief executives, to say follow the 4-year term, and when one has served 4 years, let them go away, let someone else take over. We are talking of the boards that work with the particular parastatals to say they need to follow the term limits, and you don't need someone with a conflict of interest in terms of sitting on that particular board. We don't need people who actually are sitting on more than 2 boards, because you will not be committed enough. So we've made all those areas after careful consideration, not just to say we want this one out just for the sake of it. But there is a reason, and we've got the governance framework that government adopted in 2010, and we are following that. And when we give the recommendations, it is after carefully considering these people have done wrong.
Going forward, because I know young people will face these issues tomorrow. They are the young people. You've talked about terms of office for CEOs, boards, and that sort of thing. What if those people are actually doing well? And I now want to bring in the issue of performance-related contracts, performance-related employment. Is that something that you're also looking into? Are we working towards that? We know it's been talked about a lot, but how actively are we pursuing it?
Sure, we are pursuing it, because we have seen that after the governance framework was adopted by government, and when we started making noise as parliamentarians, we have seen that some of them are actually implementing. So it means the noise has been heard.
Are young people on boards now?
Not as young, but I think the gender balance component, yes, the young people, like the NASA board at the moment, it also has got some young people in it.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
As long as one has got the
Qualifications, they should be allowed to.
This is why I started by saying education is key.
What about, very quickly, I know we want to get to this, but there is a phenomenon we've seen, certainly I've observed it, where a minister is in one ministry, boards that fall, parastatals that fall under that ministry have the same faces. Suddenly when that ministry moves to another ministry, it's the same people in parastatals there. Surely people who have a competence in a particular area can't, is it by coincidence? What is your committee doing about such scenarios?
We have said we don't want a repeat of faces or a chain of people moving or following the minister to whatever ministry that particular ministry goes. This is why we are saying they need to respect the template. Once the governance framework has been adopted and implemented, you will not see the boards following a particular ministry to moving from one ministry to the other. And they won't be the same faces all the time. We want to give everybody, every Zimbabwean who is qualified to be in a chair or in a particular board to actually have some opportunity.
All right. Honorable Mpariwa, I must stop you there very briefly because we need to take another short break. It is My Future. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. It is My Future, and we continue our discussion tonight speaking to Honorable Paurina Mpariwa, Chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio on Public Accounts. Let's go to more questions coming from young Zimbabweans. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Honourable. As Parliament, your coffers are drained. How effective can you manage your mandate?
It is an intelligent person that actually puts us to a position where the nation has to know that the Parliament has no enough resources. You will see that many times Parliament adjourns abruptly because the resources are not there. All those things actually impact on the effectiveness of the committee and the committees as well, not only my own portfolio as well. But it is actually negatively impacted on the functions of the portfolios because the times that we would want to do our work, we may not be able to sit as a committee. You may not form a quorum, and therefore you cannot proceed. We are fortunate enough as the Public Accounts Committee. In the last few months, we've had some good Samaritans coming to chip in so that we do capacity building workshops where we have been capacitated so that the questions, the work, even in the analysis of the reports, we are able to pick information and ask it to be relevant so that it fishes out whatever information the parliamentarians are supposed to get out of the people that we will have called for hearing.
Let me ask you this, and perhaps it may not be something that is underway now, but perhaps something under consideration, because as you said, these are the future of this country. Capacity building within themselves as well to say, look, let's inculcate and develop this culture of transparency and honesty, because these are the issues that you're tackling and investigating.
Sure. To
develop it amongst them, but also to be able to empower them to say, look, this is how you investigate, or you must hold, if it's junior parliament, if it's the junior council, or your schools and those sort of things, you must hold them to account, you must follow up and analyze and audit what is being done. Is there any interaction within the senior parliament, the junior parliamentarians? What can you do in order to empower and bridge that gap with young people?
In the last parliament, we had partnered, but I was in the committee on labour, where we had young parliamentarians working with the senior parliamentarians. It went on very well. And I would want to encourage them, now that we have interacted, they know who I am, they can be observers, so that they also develop the confidence and begin to interact even with the parliamentarians that come from their constituencies. Mm-hmm. And it's never too late. And I think this is the right time.
Your committee, by its nature, may come up because of some of the things you are unearthing or investigating. Is it a challenge you've encountered where perhaps you've been unable to discharge your duty without fear or favor? And particularly I'm talking about fear because perhaps there is influence being put, or certain people saying, look, you can't look into that, to investigate that, or I am untouchable and so don't look into my ministry or my accounts.
Of course, because you are dealing with human beings, you are dealing with issues of welfare as well. You are dealing with the economic issues, because when you are saying so and so must go, you are actually taking away the bread from their mouth. It's not very easy. We trust God that as we unearth and as we are already unearthing, God will just protect us. But nothing is impossible.
Earlier, there's a young man who asked a question about making your findings public, which you've talked about, but I think also something he may have been alluding to, and I would want to find out what is the law around that. These parastatals, do they make their accounts public? As an ordinary citizen, what rights do I have to say, look, I want to see what this money is being used for, and what are some of the best practices around that?
Yes, they do submit their audited accounts to the Auditor General. Once this report is reached Parliament, it's now a public domain. It's in the public domain, and you can actually get that information from a particular parastatal of your interest. And they should not hide from the AG on the reports, because they really need to actually say it as it is, for parliamentarians to know, and then we can actually work together to assist, or whether to put some kind of a mechanism that the parastatal has to be on the go. You will see that there has been a lot of, rot in our parastatals, and this is key in terms of proper governance and accountability, and we cannot just leave it like that.
Is this the best way to do this? I only ask this because independence of the AG's office, can you guarantee that it's fully independent? Shouldn't perhaps private auditors be coming in to do these books of accounts?
At the moment, there is nothing that the AG's office of the current status or nature is failed to do in terms of bringing out information, fishing out information, both from the government and from the parastatals. They have been spot on in terms of the reports, and I think you've seen some of the reports in the media. But if there was some kind of a doubt from the committee and from Parliament, then we would go the route that you are actually mentioning. But they have done excellently well.
Okay, we're almost wrapping up, but I do know that you sit on the Pan-African Parliament. From your experience, from traveling, from interacting with other parliaments around Africa, number one, how well or badly are we doing in terms of our public parastatals here? Often, we might be a bit too hard on ourselves, but how are we faring as compared to other parastatals out there in terms of being accountable? And what experiences can we learn from other countries?
We are behind. That is the truth. If you are to compare ourselves with Kenya, I was recently in Uganda, Tanzania, they are spot on. And I think we need lessons that we have learned to be implemented here. If we follow the governance framework that is in place at the moment, then our parastatals will be comparable to the 3 countries that I've mentioned.
Why aren't we following that governance?
I think people were just reluctant until recently. I want to say, for example, NASA is up to date with their reports. Those that you're saying, why are they not submitting their accounts? NASA has submitted, NRZ has submitted. So you are now seeing reports trickling in, because there's that particular mention in terms of why are you behind with your accounts? Why are you not submitting your accounts to the AG? So I want to believe that slowly we are like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, we thank you for those efforts in terms of pushing and encouraging some of those parastatals. Do you also audit, I know we dwelt quite a bit on parastatals, but ministries as well? This falls under that, and perhaps these young children might be particularly interested in the Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Education.
Oh yes, we do all ministries. We do all parastatals. Anyone who gets money from government is supposed to be audited by the AG, and the report is to be submitted to the Portfolio Committee on Public Accounts.
Very lastly, as a parting shot to these young people and millions more watching, how accessible are you? Where do they find you? How do they interact with you if they want to get more information or just learn a bit more?
You will find me at Parliament, but I think my cell phone number, 0772 850 533.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Honourable.
very much.
We certainly hope that you will not be inundated with phone calls from young Zimbabweans, but
Sure.
at the end of the day, this is the opportunity to talk to you, to interact with you, and to help shape a brighter future for this
Thank
country.
you, Father.
Thank you for your time. I thank you, young people, for coming through, and I thank the millions more watching at home. My Future, we do this effort to try and get young people to ask questions, to hold policymakers to account as they try to shape a brighter future, not just for themselves, but for their country. My name is Mpariwa. Be sure to join me again next time. Until then, goodbye.